Welcome back to Perspectives here on Arise News. It is time to bring in our guests for this interesting subject around the question of leadership in the corporate setting. It goes without saying that any meaningful discussion about leadership must come with a lot of experience, responsibility, and know-hows. We have with us today Mustafa Chike, who is chairman of Fidelity Bank and the pioneer managing director of Asset Management Company of Nigeria. Prior to the 2019 elections, Mr. Chike served as economic advisor to Atiku Abubakar campaign organization. And Mustafa is
being joined by Zaccheus, who is founder and chairman of Eventful Limited, a leading events planning and consulting company. Yewande is a convener of the Fashion Souk, the Beauty Souk, both annual industry fairs in Lagos. She is a 2011 recipient of the prestigious International Women's Entrepreneurial Challenge Award, an initiative of Chambers of Commerce and of Manhattan and Barcelona, and also India. She's also a recipient of the This Day newspaper's Game Changer Award. She's also a co-founder and past chairperson of Women in Management and Business, and an author of 4 inspirational books. Feels so great to have both of you on the program.
Welcome to Perspectives. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's interesting, before we entered the show, we obviously had quite a robust conversation. And I hope we can repeat it here. Because I remember I was telling you, Chike, save this for when we get on air. So let's even start with a good question. First question is, how do you develop good leadership skills and be a great leader? What are the qualities a great leader needs to have to grow his company or organization from strength to strength? I'll start with you, Yewande.
All right, I'll start. Thank you again, Ruth and Tara, for having me on the program. In respect of leadership in running my own organization as an entrepreneur, I think what is probably the most important characteristic is courage. I think that you need to show the people who are behind you that you have the courage of your convictions, and that you also have a vision that you want to ensure that they can follow through with. And I think you have to be inspirational. I think people need somebody to look up to. They need to be inspired by who you are, what you do. That is that heart connect that they can have with you is what will enable them to carry out the functions that will make sure that the vision of the company is actually actualized. So I think vision, you have to be a visionary person. I think courage, and I think being an inspirational person. I think those are the things for me in my business that I thought were the most important aspects of being a leader.
What about you, Chike? What's your take on that?
Well, I think we have to define 2 things: what an organization is and what a leader is. I think that organizations could be both large, complex, simple, and small. But once you define it as an organization, then there's only one leader of the organization. And that leader must be the person that articulates clearly and communicates clearly and follows through clearly on the vision. So each organization, to survive in the long run, things have survived for 20, 30 years. Nazi Germany survived for a while, but the vision was flawed and collapsed after depends on when it started, but 6 years of the war. So for organizations to survive in the long run, there must be a vision that's communicated well, that's articulated well, and then there must be people that can follow through on the vision. And for me, that's what the leader is, the person with the vision. And in Nigeria, again, I always challenge people to tell me the vision of, since we're talking politics part of the time, what's the vision of the 3 presidential candidates, major ones, 4 of them, if you want to say 4. What are their visions? Can you say it in simple language? Can you say the vision of the last 4 presidents? What is their vision for Nigeria? And I think that's where we fall down. We do not have a vision that we can state, articulate, and therefore follow through.
very good point. I like how you said the leader must have a vision and be able to communicate the vision with the organization. And I love when you said there has to be courage from a leader. Passion, courage, integrity. Those do spell out effective leaders. Let's talk about hiring process in an organization. I want to touch on a point whereby merit-based versus relationship-based recruitment. How do you feel in a scenario whereby someone approached you for a position and the organizational structure has a structure to recruit for that exact position? But this is someone that has approached you and you know that you have a very solid relationship with them. How do you navigate ensuring that you hire the best person rather than someone who approached you based on a relationship?
Man, no man kind of
right.
situation.
Relationship-based versus merit-based.
If I may take that, I think that, again, I talk about the vision. So, Afenifere, for example, will always be led by a Yoruba person. That's the vision. Ohanes and Igbo will always be led by an Igbo person. That's the vision. So, if the best person is an American, it doesn't qualify. So when people talk about the best person all the time, the best person, again, is subject to the vision of the organization. If it's an organization that's devoted to women, based, for example, the leaders have to be women. You can't say, let's go find the best person, because the men do not apply.
Interestingly enough, we actually do have 2 men on the new board. But we have said that a man can never be the leader of the organization. Yes, because we believe that they urge perspective.
I know I'm being very narrow and maybe I'm very dogmatic about this. And I think that you must define the organization. If I form an organization of Onitsha men, right, then clearly that's the vision. And the people that join are going to be Onitsha men, and the people that lead are going to be Onitsha men. So I think that, again, and also, if it's a big organization, the leader has no business with recruitment. None. If you know the leader will say, oh, please, call the MD, call the HR. When I was at AMCON, for example, there was a lot of pressure on me to hire people from people who are very senior to me. And I always said to them, fine, call HR, let them take the test. If they pass the test, fine. So again, it depends on how you see your organization and therefore what's the vision for the organization. If it's one that says the best people should come in, then that's easy. And that's the best. That's the best way to do it. But there are some that are very narrow, that have different rules.
But are you saying that this man, no man thing does, because it does exist all over the world?
It shouldn't exist.
Yeah, but it does exist. Whether we like it or not, it does exist.
I think what I get from what you were asking is that if you have a process in hiring and you have a position where somebody that you don't know at all and somebody that has been sent by
someone you know, a relative, right?
Or a favor, if they're both exactly on the same level, who would you choose? And clearly, you would choose the person who, as long as they're on the same level, you would choose the person that you have a relationship with. But my point is, if that person is not as good as the one that I would definitely go for the one that is better. And I would always be able to explain that because, at the end of the day, you're running a company and, you have to just, stick to it.
It's good that you say that. But like I was saying to Chike, unfortunately, this exists. And sometimes even the person that you choose is not necessarily as good as the person that you don't know. As in the person that you choose because it was referred to you, it's not necessarily as good as the person that you don't know. And that also can backfire. Another angle I wanted to even ask.
But let me clear. There are organizations that do not allow people who are related to any of the senior people to work in organizations.
Yeah, but they don't have to relate on that point.
Okay, so my point is that depends on how you define organization. There are organizations that say, no, you can't even talk to somebody you know. And organizations that welcome it, that want a family. So I keep going back to the point. Every organization is different. What is the vision? That's what allows us to join an organization. If you tell me there's a bank that hires people from Ogun State, I won't apply. But that vision must be clear and communicated. And then we can debate on whether it's a good vision or a bad vision.
But within that vision.
But each organization must be clearly defined as to what they stand for. And that job of defining what it stands for is the job of the leader. That's my view.
That makes sense. And if we can play less on connection and play more on merit, of course, a lot more companies will be a lot more successful. And I hope that in moving forward, what you just said will become more paramount and be a better rule to follow. Because I know people who have complained, especially people who work in the government parastatals, about how their boss is, some of them are even barely literate. There was a lady that was telling me that she was reading, somebody was given to her to work under her, not that she employed the person. and she was dictating notes for the person to type out. And the person didn't have any pen, didn't have any paper. And she kept on talking, and she said to him, where's your notes? He said, no, madam, don't worry, I will remember. And she was perplexed. So she goes to another staff and says, look, this is what happened. Apparently, the guy wasn't very literate. What he does is that after she's told him what she needs to do, he goes to somebody else who now does the typing. And she says there's many like that. You can tell they're totally unqualified. They don't have anything to say when you do board meetings. But at the end of the day, they are the eye of somebody who put them there, or they are there because they know A, B, C, and D.
You seem to be agreeing with me.
No, yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I'm just giving you examples of the disadvantages.
I'll give you a practical example.
Situations.
People will come to me, when I was at AMCON, we're hiring very rapidly. People will come from the bank, and they'll say to me, I want to work at AMCON. And I say, why would you leave a bank to work at AMCON? And they often say, because it's a government parastatal, we can go home at 3 o'clock, at 4 o'clock. Because that is the way government institutions have been communicated to people. Yes. That is the vision associated with government institutions, that you up at 10 and go home at 3.
And don't even have
that's how it's been communicated. So I keep saying, so people that choose to come there, choose to come because that's how they see.
Easy way out and see whether they can get some money on the side.
If we have leadership in Nigeria that communicates that government work is service, it's not a favor to me to make me a minister. It's a duty that I have to absorb. I will live poorly, I will make less money, I will work harder.
I don't know if that happens.
If that happens, the people that go to become ministers will become different.
So let's hold on to that. Okay. Because we're going on the break now. I'd like to explore that one. I don't know who is running for public office to serve.
There are people, there are many people.
Let's keep that. We're going to raise now. Okay, you ran for senator. You ran for senator.
The people are about
you ran for senator.
At the time of
so
break,
don't worry, I can understand.
You're coming back.
You ran for senator.
Many people.
Okay, Olatorera, I can understand why you're getting worked up. She ran for senate, so don't worry. So we're going on the break now, and soon, much sooner than later, we'll be back. You stay with us. Thank you. Caught me unawares there. Welcome back to Perspective. And of course, before we left, my darling co-host almost beat my head off because I talked about the true essence of wanting to serve in government. Right? Now, I feel you, I understand you, but come on now.
So what's your viewpoint on
My viewpoint is that
people are there for money? Or what?
Majority of them are. How much is it to run for governorship now? But how much do you need? Chike?
I have no idea.
No, give me a rough figure. At least you have, okay, you don't want to be politically incorrect. I think it costs about 3 to 4 to 5 billion naira to run for governorship. Even you said it, that you spend a lot of money. Now, how many people can afford these monies? Just because you don't have the money doesn't mean that you don't have the merits to want to run for it. And what it does, it discourages people to want to enter.
That's because based on the caliber of leaders we've had over the past 6 decades.
Why must it cost so much to run for governorship or chairman council?
They've created
presidency
barriers,
or
entry.
So those that can afford it want to make their monies back.
Those that can afford it want to make their money back when they get there.
Those that can afford to bring those monies to run for it want to make their monies back when they get there.
There's some people who don't care about making their monies back.
They're the minority.
There are some people that even also don't use their money. There are some people that actually are supported, they are called upon, and they're told, oh, we see the leadership characteristics in you.
So what discouraged you
we
to
know that
stop
you
running
can
for
be
yours?
a great minister of interior. We want you there.
What discouraged you to stop running for yours?
What made me stop running? I didn't get the ticket for
Why
the
didn't you get
party.
The tickets?
Because of complexities in Nigeria's politics.
Things
we're trying to change before 2026,
don't get me wrong.
2027.
We are trying to change that. Do you understand? I mean, I'm not saying that
we're good leaders.
I'm just saying, before we digress, I was just saying that unfortunately, politics now is not very attractive for the average hardworking person because nobody's going to put their hard-earned cash to run for something that is so high risk and you cannot predict the outcome.
But we want to encourage good leaders to go into politics.
We want to encourage
because that's what Nigeria needs. Nigeria needs good leaders.
And which leads us to our next point, which is about bad leadership. Now, you both have worked inside organizations before, and you've also led organizations before. What are the pertinent things that make leadership bad? What key traits do bad leaders have that you learned not to do when you became a leader? Let's start with you. Women first. Let's start with you one day.
The characteristics of a bad leader. Well, I guess everything that's opposite to what a good leader is. If you're somebody who, number one, you don't have a vision that you want anybody to follow. So that's already a problem. So people don't even know where they're going. So how do they follow you when they don't? You haven't given them what is going to lead them into the next level. So if you don't have a vision, we were talking about that earlier. You're not a leader. If you're somebody who divides and rules, you are not.
That divide and rules is
if you're
so
somebody
annoying.
who does not
really
want to,
painful.
I think for me, one of the most important things about being a leader in my business is the ability to really help people to be the best of who they are. I think for me that's absolutely so important to me, that people come into my company with so little, and by the time they leave, they've learned so much, they've grown so much, they've developed so much. But if you don't have that interest, and your interest is not in building up the people who are working with you, your interest is not in ensuring that the vision for your company is actualized, then of course you will be a bad leader. If you're somebody who has no integrity, integrity is absolutely important for anybody who is leading, because how do you lead if you do not have integrity?
Exactly.
People can't trust you. People don't know if you're going to wake up this morning and say this, and then the next morning you say something else. So I think for me, those are the kind of things that would be bad leadership. So lack of trust, lack of integrity, not having a vision articulated that people can follow, and just confusing people and just letting them, as you were talking about it earlier, have this office politics, man eats man, dog eats dog kind of thing, not fostering an atmosphere of conducive to growth of people, because people spend so much more time in their office than in their homes, if you look at it. So you really need to ensure that you have a workspace that is conducive for growth and learning, and their mental health as well.
What about you, Chike? Do you have
think,
anything to add to that?
No, about bad leadership. I think that it's all, again, I start with the vision. The vision can be good or bad. Hitler was a leader, but he had bad vision. But it was very clear what he said. Germans are superior to everybody else, and we must rule everybody else.
Isn't that what Putin is trying to do now?
Well, I don't know what Putin is yet. Let's just take history. And we must do it by military force. Yeah. And he was very consistent, but 6 years later he was gone. So you can have bad vision, but it was clearly he had a clear vision and people followed it. The Germans followed it for 6 years to their disaster. So bad leadership starts with this vision, a good and sustainable one. And then, are you consistent in your execution of your vision? Some people are not consistent. Like you talk about divide and rule. Some people say we want a merit-based organization, and then they put two subordinates against each other at loggerheads because they like that. So if you have a vision and you tell us what the vision is, we can choose whether to follow you or not follow you. If we follow you, then you must be consistently making sure.
What about instilling of fear? I think that also some leaders use that as a weapon.
But
as well.
they will have told you. You see, that's what bothers me about Nigeria.
Is it telling you or just by acting it?
If they don't tell you what their vision is, you should be very careful.
No, but no leader is going to tell you that, I'm going to make all of you scared out of your pants.
But
the way you operate is what instills the fear.
You're correct. But my point is, you must be able to, for anybody you follow, because many of us have been followers at some point in time. I was saying earlier, I think most MDs, senior as they may be, are followers. They are following the vision of the leader. And there's nothing wrong with being a follower. But, every military general is a follower of the commander-in-chief, following the vision of the president. So I think the problem we have in Nigeria and many of our organizations is that we do not hold the leader to tell us exactly what is your vision and then follow through. Again, I hate to go back to politics. And I wish the other candidates can tell us their vision. Only Peter Obi has said, production, not consumption. That's a vision. How he intends to do it, I don't know.
Why, you don't think the other two have said anything?
Can you tell me what they've said as a vision?
Well, I know what's his name. Tinubu has said it's going to his vision is forward thinking and not backwards.
That's not a vision.
No,
my point is, I'm sure I know him and I respect him tremendously. I'm sure he has a vision, but his people should articulate it in a simple way that we can understand.
But then some of them have. Some
spokespersons. Well, you can't tell me. Well, if I don't know what the vision is, then it's not my fault. It's the fault of the communicator.
What about Atiku?
Atiku Abubakar, who I also respect, as you know, I worked with him. They should tell us what his vision is briefly. We don't have a 60-page manifesto, as Rufai always wants. Thinks manifestos must be written. Manifestos can be oral. Manifestos can be just a public declaration of your intent. That's what the manifesto is in the dictionary. So he keeps saying, write manifesto. In today's world, we don't have to write it. Say it. Say it clearly, articulate it so we understand. Then we decide whether we want to follow you or not. But this, I'm APC, I'm PDP, follow me, because that's not good enough anymore.
They're beginning to sound like rhetorics.
Just tell us, what does Tinubu stand for? What does Atiku stand for? What does P2B stand for? What does Kwankwaso stand for?
Yeah, but do you think telling you is enough? Don't you think the antecedents also should determine?
The first step is telling us. If they don't tell us in the first instance, we can't progress. Tell us.
Yeah, but I'm going further and saying if they're telling you is that enough? Won't you look at the antecedents?
I agree, but if they tell
determine,
you,
because gift of the gab doesn't necessarily mean that you can deliver.
But let me answer you. If somebody tells you something that clearly they can't do, then that's the way we judge them. Okay? If they tell you something they clearly can do, then we judge them too. So tell us first, then we will then decide whether or not we like what you're saying, and then determine whether we think you can deliver it. But when they don't tell us, it's not very good.
I don't know, coming back to, you were asking about fear and how fear was something that's, obviously that's bad leadership.
Yes.
Now, if you instill fear into the hearts of those who are following you, you're never going to get the best out of them.
Yes.
Everybody's operating under a situation where, if I do this, they may want to do the right thing, but the fear of this leader who, a leader is something you should be able to say, this is the way he will go. You should be able to be absolutely sure that if I do this, this is going to happen. If I do this, if you're operating with somebody who you do not know what the consequences will be, that is the worst part of bad leadership. And people cannot thrive in that kind of environment. That kind of environment is what breeds distrust. It's what breeds the office rivalry. It's what breeds favoritism, people trying to curry favor. And, it's a recipe for disaster. And as he has said,
So do you encourage a situation where you voice your thoughts, even regardless of whether or not your leader agrees with you? Are you the kind of
100%.
leader that would encourage that?
I do. I encourage
because a lot of people feel afraid to talk.
No. I've always been, well, I guess because the way I was brought up, I was always brought up to speak my mind. And I find it actually difficult when people are unable to speak their minds. And I welcome people thinking outside the box, because when you're surrounded by yes men, you're not going to get very far.
Exactly.
You're not going to be able to expand even your own vision, even your own horizons.
Yes.
So I think it's always very important to show people that you encourage critical thinking.
And are welcome to change.
You're welcome. As long as things are done, within our culture with politeness and with respect. But people must be able to air their own views. And because you'll be surprised what you can learn from your followers, no matter how excellent a leader you are. So for me, I think in my business, I've always encouraged that.
I'll start with you. You touched on something earlier whereby you would encourage development, hire people who you can actually train and help impact positively. The educational gap in Nigeria has caused a lot of unemployment because a lot of Nigerians are seen as not having the right skill sets to get into positions. As a leader who wants to be able to make sure that you're hiring the best people and also making sure that you create opportunities locally for Nigerians to be able to thrive, for them to have good standards of living, where do you bridge that gap between the knowledge shortfalls and hiring the best people? What onboarding programs and training programs would you provide?
I think it's an interesting question because, my company celebrated 20 years a couple of weeks ago. And one of the things we did is that as our CSRs, we're partnering with both the Lagos Business School and Unilag to support them in the annual business pitches for entrepreneurs. You see, what it is it's a kind of education we have been receiving that has not allowed people to develop this entrepreneurial spirit which they need because of the situation we're in this country. And I was amazed to find that both in Unilag and LBS, they're actually, encouraging students to be entrepreneurial now, so that you're not just getting an academic degree and then you come out with some degree in philosophy or chemistry and you don't have something to do. So for me, it was just so important to be able to support that by, sponsoring their annual business pitches for both those institutions for students. So if we're able to reach people at that level, by the time they're coming into the market, they're coming in with a spirit of entrepreneurship. They understand entrepreneurship. Even for my own, as part of the training we do is at the Entrepreneurship Development Center, where we get staff to go and learn to think as business owners even before they become, business owners. So I think it's important that we start at that level and provide the training that is necessary. If people come out of school with that kind of mindset, with that expanded vision of what they can do and how they can be useful to society in the business world, then it augurs the best for us. And then, of course, in your own institution, provide the kind of training that will help them to think like business people, to be able to be problem solvers, and to be able to just add value. So I think that's
quite interesting. I don't know if any of you have seen this series called Billions. It's on Netflix. It's a company that deals with stock exchange, and it's a hedge fund company, or rather a hedge fund company. And what they do is that they put so much pressure on their staff to perform, and because of that, the staff, it's high tension, high networking. They raise billions in days and what have you. And of course, the boss is very vicious, very hard nut to crack. Now, what I found most fascinating was that they had an in-house psychiatrist, a life coach in-house, who helped them as and when they needed, to advise them, to encourage them every time they feel deflated or one thing or the other. And I found it like such a novel experience, and I'm thinking, my goodness, this actually can come in handy at some point. So I'm wondering, do you think Nigeria and organizations would ever get to that level where, no, seriously, where, I know it sounds strange, but in this series it actually works. They go to her, by the time they've spoken to her, they come out recharged and rejuvenated and what have you. Do you think it's an idea that can never work here in Nigeria?
Ruth, that industry is well known for being high intensity industry.
Yes.
People that go into that business, the hedge fund business, they choose to do it because they give up peaceful lives for a lot of earnings.
But they come to this.
I know them. I know them. I know a lot about that industry, and I'm telling you, I have no sympathy for them. It's a nice touch that they have an in-house coach.
No, but is it a workable idea?
Of course not. Of course not. You choose to go into that industry. You can't have an in-house psychiatrist in a bank. It just doesn't make any sense. You can have an in-house psychiatrist for her line of business. It's
business that is so intense.
Yeah, but you choose to
you see, this is what I like.
I love places that tell you this is what we are. Let me tell you, when I was on Wall Street, there was a 5-year period where I didn't get more than 2 hours sleep a night because I was responsible for Tokyo, and Tokyo was 12 hours ahead of us. So I would. Anytime there was a large transaction that needed approval, they would wake me up, and I would have to approve it.
That was very hectic.
So, but I chose it. So as long as people know what they're signing up for, it's okay. It is, something like.
But what about your mental state of health? What about
I think I agree with her because Nigerians go through so much.
You know what? We are going on a break.
It may not be their industry based. It may just be that they need that.
We're going on a break now, and then we're going on a break now. So we want to readdress that issue because I really think state of mind and mental health plays a huge role in the success of any company, even if that's what you are assigned to do. So we're going on a break now. We'll come back and discuss this issue more at depth with Chike and Zaccheus. See you soon in Perspectives. Okay, we know Chike, you're a very hard man. You signed up for it, so whatever happens, well, so be it. It's not as easy, and it's not as cut and paste as it is. Yes, it might sound like a bit of a luxury having an in-house coach, but if you have a company of over 7,000 people, like Olatorera said, I don't see any reason why you can have somebody on call. Maybe not necessarily full-time staff. But anyway, aside from that, let's even move forward. Letting go. the ability to know when your time is up and you want to pass the baton. I know of people whose fathers or whose bosses have just refused to let go, even though the time has come for change and somebody younger, fresher, more vibrant, you know, can give the thing an uplift or take it to the next stratosphere. So what's your take on that when you have founders who can't let go?
I think I'll let you take that.
Why you're not a man to...
Maybe he thinks I have an interesting story, because you know we were talking before.
Yes.
No, honestly, to be honest, as you know, I came from a corporate background, law and banking for 18 years before I started my company. So I was very, very intentional about the fact that I wanted to run a business that would outlive me. And I also know that from the kind of personality I am, I would always want to go ahead and do something else. So I had thought that after about 10 years, I would be able to, you know, hand over the business. But that didn't happen because the young men who were with me at that time decided to go and do other things. So I was, you know, of course, totally discouraged, but, you know, started again, a new set of people. And as he's always talking about vision, this new set, I was able to really, they were really able to catch on to the vision. They were young, they loved the work. I empowered them, gave them a sense of ownership. And I also let them realize that there's a future here, because I made it clear that I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. So I was very, very intentional about that. And it's also enlightened self-interest, because I also know that I'm somebody that there's so much more I want to explore and do, which I cannot do if I'm still the CEO of the company. So as I found who I felt would be the successor, who I felt would be able to take all the values of the company and, you know, even do it better, I knew that it was time to go. And honestly, you'll know when it's time to go. For me, you know, when you're bored, when you're no longer interested, you just know. Even when I was in EcoBank, I knew when it was time to leave, because the person who was my number two, she was already as good as, you know, she was already as good as the job as I was. So why should I be there? You know, so go ahead, do something. Even in WinBiz, I was telling you, after 21 years of being the founders of such an organization which we never knew was going to grow into this phenomenal organization, but we all let go. We are all in our 60s, almost all of us, except maybe one. So what business do we have still being the ones running an organization for people when all of us are retired? So it's so important to know when the time to step down and let the next generation. And you see, if people are coming behind you and they don't see a future, they don't see that there's a chance for them to, you know, to try their own hands and see how they can make a business successful, then they'll leave. And for me, it's just been a win-win, because I left 18 months ago and the company is actually doing better than when I was there.
But don't you still feel some sense of attachment?
Of course. I mean, it's my baby, you know,
exactly.
and of course, I'm the chairman. And as he's always said in our discussions, he was saying, you know, you are still the leader because you're the one with the vision. But of course, I no longer have any operational say. I don't run the company anymore. But strategic direction as the chairman, I still.
But have they brought in new ideas that you're surprised or impressed by, or have they also brought in new ideas that you're not very comfortable with?
You know, I had to learn to just let go, that everything can't be the way I used to do it. I mean, I'll just something as simple as, you know me, I'm old school. I like people to dress corporate and all that. The minute I left, they got into their jeans and their t-shirts. I mean, one of them came last time. She had a ring in her nose. I was like, hello. And I just said, you know what, it's not my business. That's what you guys do. So, you know, and then another thing, as I talked to you about, was the issue of working from home. They had always wanted to work from home because, you know, it's so intense. We work weekends, we cut night. And before COVID, I was like, no way, nobody will do any work. And then, of course, COVID struck and we had to start doing that. And now, even after COVID, that is what they're doing. And it works so well. And you're getting better, you know, commitment and better work out of everybody because they have that flexibility of not being in the office every day. So these are a couple of things that I would not have done, but they are doing, and it's making the company you know, a better place. Their work-life balance is better. So you really just have to let go of the reins.
Let go and embrace
the change and hope for the best. I mean, I've been fortunate. Things are going well. Maybe other people may not have been that fortunate, but I invested a lot of time in them to make sure that they would be able to run with the vision when I left.
Well, that's interesting. That's interesting. Because even with style, I'm still quite, you know, but why didn't you do this? Or why didn't you do that? And I'm like, Ruth, let it
I'm at an event and I'm like,
it's not your
who
baby
did you
anymore.
Why did you?
Yeah.
Hello, it's not your business, Madam Chair, and I sort of withdraw.
I know, but it's good. It's good to know that, you know, you can look back at what you created and somebody has filled the shoes and done it well. And our prayer for everyone, even both old, young, and upcoming, is to be the best that you can be.
Absolutely.
And if you can get that behind you, and then they've now created their own followership, it makes it even better.
Yeah, they have their
because you
own.
cannot remain stagnant.
Yeah.
What I want to know is what you're going to be doing next, Yewande, because you're still a young hot babe. Forget all that old matter.
No, I'm so busy. In
Yeah,
fact, my husband
that's
actually
good.
said that you're even busier than me. I mean, look at this now. How am I on this program this morning? This is it. I just came back from Madrid. I spoke at a women's business conference.
Oh, that's good.
there's
Oh,
always
congratulations
stuff to
on
do.
that as well.
Yeah,
So that's good to have.
so
Anyway, Mr. Chike, Mustafa,
It's Ruth.
Mrs. Yewande, Zaccheus, thank you so much
Thank you.
for being in our show today.
Lovely having you both on
it's lovely having you
Perspectives.
both, and thank you so much. So that's all we have time for today. You've been watching Perspectives here on Arise News with me, Osime. And remember, life is a learning curve.
And with me, Olatorera, Majekodunmi-Oniru. Goodbye for now.
Thank you.